Hello to the new people and the very few ones who watched my last video where I butchered most of the words and names I said.
Sorry, Buddy. Sorry, Buddy. Sorry, Buddy.
Anyway, so I'm actually working on a different video as we speak, but since it will take me a little while to finish it, I decided to meanwhile make a quick video about basically what I read this week. So this is a shout out to the digital publishing company Lilyka. Well, the truth is that a couple of weeks ago I stumbled across Lilyka's Twitter, and after checking their website, I kind of went off buying Rampage and bought a lot of their manga. Like, a lot. What can I say? It was surprising to me that this publishing site exists in United States. Plus, their content is, at least for many Yuri enthusiasts like myself, varied, ranging from cutesy, fluffy Yuri to more realistic and serious ones. But more on that later. And what exactly is so weird about Lilyka? First, I guess I have to say what Lilyka is exactly about, don't I? Lilyka is a digital publishing site that focuses on independent Yuri manga and or doujinshi. And that word, doujinshi, is the one that provides context to what makes Lilyka different from other publishers. For the ones who don't know, doujinshi are Japanese works made outside a particular publishing company. In other words, they are comics or manga published independently by the author themselves. Since doujinshi aren't, let's say, tied to any particular publisher, many mangakas use this opportunity to express more freely and publish any kind of content that otherwise they could not be able to do, especially to a more mainstream audience. And although this practice is very common in Japan, I mean, they even have events that focus on buying and selling doujinshi. Here in the USA is something new. Well, perhaps you could argue that it is similar to how scenes were made through the 70s and 90s, but I'm getting off topic. My main point here is that being able to buy doujinshi translated legally in English, even if it's only digital, is what surprised me and actually made me really happy. I don't know, I'm just glad that Yuri, a genre that has been regarded as more niche from other manga genres, has now a more growing audience in the USA. Now we have more and more publishers willing to go for Yuri titles. We have Seven Seas, Yen Press, Tokyo Pop, and so on. And not only that, but now we have the opportunity of reading independent Yuri works by mangakas who had been advocating for the genre for many years, and more so because Lilyka has good titles in their library. I will be upfront about it and talk about all the mangakas I bought from, although I will also briefly review some of the titles. So, the first tier of mangas I bought are made by Ruri Hazuki, a mangaka that focuses mostly on adult women in the workplace. I bought all the Wednesday series and Saturday series, and all I can say about them is that from some of them, they weren't what I expected, but in a good way.
The Wednesday series have two short stories, one about the encounter of two women who haven't seen each other since high school and how they rekindle their love for one another. The second story, and one of my favorite, is about two women, one who is tired of her work and doesn't seem to have any respite in her life, and the second woman who she keeps running into, a handsome photographer in charge of, unrealistically, every party or event our protagonist has to go to. The Saturday series theme was unexpected to me.
When I bought the manga, I expected a story about women in the work environment, meeting each other and falling in love, And it has, of course, that, but it is also about the different relationship dynamics of our protagonist with all the women in her life. But it is also about the relationship dynamics of all the other women with every single woman within this world. So you end an interconnected string here, and I will show the picture that Doujinshi presented. When it shows the romantic and platonic relationships, the ones who are friends with, or sex friends, or potential lovers, the ones who just slept together one time, and so on. It was confusing to me at first, like I didn't get the point until I was in the middle of the introduction of this series, where they separate and present each couple and relationship. When I did get there, though, I find myself enjoying the series quite a bit. You can certainly picture the manga as a fun way of seeing how the different personalities of the characters mingle and interact to one another, and think about which couples or relationship dynamic is more appealing to you. And as a side note, I can finally be able to recognize the characters shown on every comic strip that Ruri Hazuki uploads in her Twitter, so yay! The other mangaka I looked for was Yuno Utagawa, mostly because her characters seem to consist only of androgynous or tomboy women, which I am all for it. And his stories can be cute, sweet, and oftentimes charged with a glimpse of sexiness for the most part.
I bought all her anthologies, which are 3 in total: Sweet Sleep, Short Sleep, and TNT.
As it is common in anthologies, you will find some short stories that appeal to you, and others which you might not like that much. I will say that the Sweet Sleep anthology was my favorite of the bunch, because although there were only 3 short and simple stories, each one had a different feeling or theme on their own, which make them stand out from each other. You have Choco, that is about confessing to your crush; Tish, about having an unfulfilled crush; and Cher, that is about jealousy. Now, the TNT anthology has been released very recently by Lilyka, which is the longer anthology of the 3 and features 8 stories in total, ranging from stories with only 2 or 3 pages to ones that are divided into 2 parts. I will say though, there's one that I personally didn't enjoy, named Once a Month Girlfriend, which has some dubious consent issues that made me uncomfortable. There's also another one named Fuel that could be perceived as fat shaming, so if that sounds as something you will not enjoy, I recommend skipping it. Regardless of that, I would totally recommend reading something by Utagawa, and I, of course, will keep probably buying anything by her if the opportunity is presented.
The last 2 stories I purchased were The Lady Witch and Her Cat by Nagori Yu and To Become an Adult by Teni Noboru.
On one hand, you have Nagori Yu, a mangaka that I have followed way before knowing about Lilyka. If I had to describe her style, I would say that she likes using fantasy settings to pair sophisticated, older, or more experienced women with delicate, younger, or more naive ones. That's certainly a common trope in Yuri. The mentor and apprentice falling in love, or the senpai-kohai dynamic, if you will. At the same time, though, I don't think I'm doing justice to her works, mainly because although she uses this trope, it is used in different and imaginary ways. Furthermore, I don't want to insinuate a lack of agency between one of the women in the relationships at all, since most of her works focus on grown and independent women with their own strength, although she's definitely playing with this type of dynamic for sure. In The Lady Witch and Her Cat, for example, there's a story of an anthropomorphic cat who finally finds a place she could call home after meeting a witch. It is a short story, but it is very cute in its own way, and I'm hoping that Lilyka brings more works by Nagori Yu in the future. Finally, To Become an Adult by Tenny Noboru is about a woman who goes to her best friend's wedding and reminisces about their past romantic relationship during high school. This one is filled with nostalgia and melancholy, so I can understand why this little story is not as heard of, and why some might be even reluctant to read it. I get it. There's more than enough stories about queer couples getting separated and one of them getting married with the opposite gender. However, I do think there's merit to sad stories, and what I mean by that is that although I am happy that there's more and more queer stories with happy endings, I also want space for subduer or mournful stories as well. And overall, I am glad that I read it because it showed me that you can find many types of stories in Lilyka. From salacious and fun to sweetness jams with tomboys, boyish, or androgynous women, to fantasy to nostalgic breakups and sadness. There's so much you can find in Lilyka for a couple of bucks. And more importantly, it is by all means legal, and by buying you support the independent authors of this doujinshi. In my case, I will keep supporting Lilyka, since I like what I saw, and I want the Yuri genre to keep growing here. In the description below, I will leave a link to Lilyka website if you are interested. And that is it. Oh yeah, I am not sponsored by Lilyka.